All right, well, why don't we just get started and
Yeah.
then we can always, come back to minutes, etc., if need be.
Okay.
So I'm going to call to order the Sustainability Committee meeting for Thursday, July 8th, 2021. It is 6:34 in the PM. We will move on to number 4, appearances. It does not look like we have any. So we'll go to item number 5, unfinished business.
Sure.
All right. So first item is Renew Wisconsin webinar promotion.
Yeah,
Alisa, do you want to take this one?
sure. So Nancy is working with Renew, I think, to coordinate. They want to do a webinar about group buy and other solar opportunities in Monona. So we have agreed to host a webinar. They're doing all of the work. We just need to, I'll be there at the beginning to like introduce them and say a little bit about what the city is doing, but we want to promote it. So I'll be promoting it on the website and Facebook, but Nancy wondered if anyone would be willing to record a PSA to put out on the radio, or if anyone had ideas about other places that it might be good to promote the webinar.
Is this on the 27th? Can you remind me of the date?
Yes, it's
Okay.
on the 27th at 7 p.m., I believe.
I'd be happy to record a PSA.
Okay.
Any other ideas? I mean, besides
Yes.
our own. Sorry, Chris, you go for it.
Can we, so I attended one of those last year and it was great. I found it very informative and helpful, and, but I did it at the, I went to the library. God, maybe it was 2 years ago. I don't know. My question or suggestion is, could we live stream it or record it or both? Because I mean, getting up to the library, is harder than watching it on your computer.
Yeah, I think the plan is for it to be over Zoom, so I can definitely ask Nancy or whoever from Renew is organizing if we can record it, because yeah, it would be great to have a recording, and if we could put it up on either our YouTube channel or if they have somewhere that we could link to it. I think that's a great idea.
I'm pretty sure Will Nimmo is on vacation, so we might want to ask like Brian Gatto about recording. But I would assume that would be fine as long as it's cool with the Renew Wisconsin folks.
Yeah,
So.
I know
Mhm.
Samantha, who's also in community media, can, if I get her like the recording of the webinar, then she can
Great.
put it up on YouTube. It wouldn't be live streamed, but yeah, I'll look into that.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea because it's something that people can go back to any time they're available. If that time frame isn't good for them, so I like that idea too.
And then do we have, I know that there has been emails exchanged about this, Lisa, but do we have any sort of text that would be appropriate for a PSA, or should I contact Nancy about that or the Renew people?
We don't have anything that I'm aware of, but I'm happy to work with you and come up with something.
I'll email you and then we can workshop it. I am leaving town next Thursday, so as long as I can get in before then to record, and I'll email Sam and put it on her radar and CC you. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on that?
Nope.
All right. The next item is the Monona Community Festival tabling of the Sustainability Committee. Just a little recap of that. Sarah and Alisa were there for the whole time. I was there for part of the time, and we had, not a ton of interest, but a lot of people passed by and hopefully saw the dashboards and or the t-shirts and, promotional, bike gear that we had out. But major ups to Sarah and Alisa for being there all day. It was very hot. And it's important to get the word out about the things that we have accomplished and the things that we are, doing in the future. So I think that was a worthwhile venture, and hopefully next year we can get a little bit more interest from and availability from the rest of the committee in participating. So it was great. We had a great chat. I mean, we really laid it out. So
Excellent. Good start.
you bet. Any other things you want to add, Elisa or Sarah, about our time? I know you were there and maybe talked to a couple more people before we.
I mean, yeah, we did have a couple people that were actually interested. We had one couple that was actively considering solar on their house. And so that was kind of nice that they were able to get that resource right there and find some stuff. But yeah, there certainly weren't as many people that stopped as I would have hoped. But I didn't have incredibly high hopes for a carnival where a lot of people were on their way to rides and things with kids. So, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see if we're doing, I mean, I've never been to the National Night Out thing because there wasn't one last year, but I think tabling might be a little more successful at events where it's more common to have tables that are just kind of informational, as opposed to the community festival, which is, carnival rides and
Funnel cake.
food trucks. So
I totally agree. And, we did a sustainability clean energy showcase in 2019 at the National Night Out. And I think that was hugely successful. So I think we should plan on tabling at that event if people are available. And I think, we have all the promotional materials and the dashboards, thanks to Elisa. So I think we should be set for future events such as that. Another idea would be the fall festival. And I think that probably would be a really good time to recruit new sustainability champions, given that, we're moving into the fall now with interviews with students and MG21 staff. So just something to keep in mind.
Right. What is the date of the fall festival?
I don't know. I don't know if it's Labor Day usually or if it's later. I think it's closer to Halloween. I think it's like one of the last weekends in October, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
who organizes it?
I believe it is Parks, but I will ask about that. I'll write Jake about that.
Okay.
I mean, if we can get a chili cook-off going, we can get a sustainability committee table going. You know what I mean? So, okay. So I think we should probably, unless people want to delve into 2021 priorities for projects, does anyone want to talk about that actively now, or should we wait until we have?
I think we should wait just because there's so much to cover. I must say that survey was extremely overwhelming. Like there's so much stuff on there and it's all important. And I personally feel like the most important thing we could do is to hire someone half-time. That was one of the things on there. Because
I think that's super
definitely
valuable feedback. I think we tend to have very, very wordy and sort of getting in the weeds kind of surveys. And I think to preserve people's attention and focus, we need to think about those sorts of things. For somebody from the committee to talk about how it was overwhelming, I think that's a good cue that we need to sort of be thoughtful about how we streamline and, make these things accessible. Sue, did you have a comment?
Anyone? Oh, yeah, I did. I went through it today and I spent probably 5 hours with it, which is me, but I've been doing, while I'm here in DC, I can't really do much there to be helpful, but I've been trying to read a lot of different materials for background and where things are going with the new administrations and all that kind of stuff. So, and I know I looked at the state guidelines that Evers put out and, some of those things, so just to kind of get focus of, and some ideas for magazines and stuff of where other communities are going and how they're getting their people engaged and making those changes and that kind of thing. So general background stuff. But as I was going through, I found it that I was wanted to make notes at some, but when I got to the end where it said, choose your top 3 of this and choose your top 3 of that, I couldn't go back into the survey to see what the list was. So I wasn't able to make my choices or to those last 2 questions or to say kind of where I might be helpful. And for me right now, I probably can't answer that last question anyway, because time is so, and location is so iffy at this point. But I was, I wanted to be able to do that, and I didn't know if other people had trouble with that or if it was just the way mine presented. I couldn't go onto a computer with it. I was just on my phone, so I don't know if that made a difference or not. But did anyone else have trouble, or did everybody just remember the whole list, which I am absolutely incapable of doing, and prioritizing my 3 first choices? Mhm.
No, Sue, I had to do, I just typed in what I could remember essentially when I got to that last piece. And
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sure, and I kind of grouped things sometimes. So some of the answers I
Yeah.
put in there were kind of
General,
consolidating, like thematically,
Yeah.
these 3 things that were listed were things that stuck out to me as something I would consider a priority. So yeah, they certainly
Right.
don't match word for word the items that
Oh,
I had
okay.
ranked previously, which I don't
Uh-huh.
know if that's going to end up being helpful. I kind of had that same problem as you, if I wish I could just pull up the list and have them side by
Yeah.
side so I could type
Right.
in
Look
exactly
again
what
and not forget
3
half of
were.
them.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I kind of just
I-
did the best I could and came up with themes of what I thought was important.
Yeah. But anyway, if I can kind of go back and just send Nancy an extra note or something. If is she the one that's collecting the information, or I'm sure it'll be consolidated some way, by the survey. But I just wondered if there's another way to kind of, since I didn't put any input in those, to try to at least, say general things, or, be more helpful at those end ones.
I think all of this would be really helpful feedback for her. The fact
Okay.
that it was, a little too much, as well as the fact that there were some, impediments to really filling it out appropriately or correctly, due to the inability to go back and look at the previous
Right.
questions or material.
Right.
I mean, you can
Anyway.
hit the back button, and I started to maybe look at that, but to be quite honest, I ended up skipping the last page entirely because I was like, I don't have time to figure out what
Yeah, I
number
know.
and letter and all that. So
Mhm.
Right.
maybe a
Right.
drop down with just like a one-liner of each thing
It's a good idea.
would be good.
Right. Yeah.
And then, as you said, it is a little verbose.
Yeah. And sometimes there's so many other factors too, like some of these you might be more interested in others, but you might have resources for somebody else on something else, or they might have for you, or you know what I mean? You don't know whether. And then, like I said, for me, I don't know where I'm going to be in the next month or 2 either, or even longer term than that. I think it's a little iffy right now, but we're doing well here. But it's I'm definitely going to be here till the end of August. So when the last therapies are for my daughter, so I don't know yet. Kind of, some things I could maybe do long distance, or do pieces of long distance, but others maybe not. So so easy. And certain things that I bring to it may be different than other people bring. So I have thoughts, that I could maybe help be just discussing with people rather than, necessarily taking charge of anything. And other
Well,
things I could do by myself,
Well, and Sue, I would say too, you provide helpful feedback, which is that you took the survey on your phone. And I think probably a lot of people will do it that way, just because that's sort of like the more universally accessible way to complete things of this nature. When you're
Right.
on the go or whatever, most people have a smartphone, but not everybody has, a laptop or computer at their disposal.
Right.
And so if you're having to read through these questions or having to type in, specific responses, that's going to be very limiting, especially in that format. And so I think that's another piece
Oh,
of
yeah.
information that you're bringing to the table that will be useful to share.
Right. Okay.
Any other thoughts on that before we move on? Okay. So I think we should, again, gloss over the Sustainability Committee 2022 budget. I think we'll need more input from the rest of the committee as well as Brad on that. And so I have an item for agenda item number 7, diversity, equity, inclusion discussion items. I had written Elisa, I live in the Frostwoods neighborhood now, and I noticed that the Outland Mound in Indian Mounds Park had been mowed by Parks. And I wrote the Parks Department to say, I feel uncomfortable about this. What's a way that we can sort of address maintenance of the mound without having, a riding mower going over the top of it? And so we are going to discuss that at the next, or I think the August Parks meeting, just to discuss it with the committee and see what their impressions are. I looked up the Wisconsin State Historical Society guidelines, and there really is nothing explicit about like weeding and mowing and other maintenance, superficial maintenance like that. There are explicit rules against digging or disturbing mounds or, remains in a burial mound, but nothing explicit about mowing. And I know that there is some concern from the Parks Department about, overgrown weeds or thistle and things like that. But I kind of feel like if the mound itself is mowed, and I think the marker on the boulder is kind of difficult to see in the bushes, I would just worry about a lot of people going on it, especially children who may not know that it's sort of like this important historical site. So, I brought up with Elisa, I wonder if there's a way that we as a committee can potentially be, we've talked about the Adopt a Park program. I wonder if there's a way that we, or maybe the Frostwoods Neighborhood Association, can work to maintain the part of the little, the little park that doesn't include the mound, but I think we should probably cordon it off or have more explicit signage that says, don't walk on this. And I definitely don't think that it's appropriate to be taking a mower over it. There are probably other ways we can maintain it without doing that. So just wanted to bring that to your attention and kind of put it on the table for future discussion and just ideas about our involvement as a committee potentially, and the ways that we can kind of explore different. I know that there's another, Doug Wood mentioned another neighborhood association or other like volunteer group that maintains another set of mounds in the area. And we don't have their maintenance manual, but we're looking into seeing how we can get a copy of that or get input from them about what their process is. I know with the formerly the Reindahl Mound and now the Monona Mound, you're not supposed to go, within 5 or 15 or some sort of, there's some like breadth of area around that you're not supposed to breach. So I think something like that would be appropriate to establish in this case as well.
Sure, that sounds like a good point, and one we could work on with other groups to, make sure we know what the rules are, and also to, or the appropriate behavior is, and then also to have them help with, keeping the area, clean or whatever needs to be done, tended properly.
And I would think, and Elisa, looks like maybe you want to make a point here as well, but I would think that given, despite the fact that the Wisconsin State Historical Society doesn't have explicit rules about this, that we couldn't do something on our own as a municipality to make more, firmer ordinances or, rules about this in our community. So.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting opportunity for some research to see if there are guidelines in other places. And then I was also just thinking, to better, as sort of an outreach opportunity or an education opportunity for the rest of the community. This is maybe a little way down the line, but like if there is someone who ends up maintaining it, or if we decide on some guidelines, it would be a great thing to feature on like the Sustainability Champions map and have a great video that maybe is at the park, to educate people about where these mounds are in our community and what sort of the guidelines are for interacting and being around them.
Absolutely. And Nancy, I know for one, has had, direct conversations with various members of the Ho-Chunk Nation, and that might be a good opportunity too, to get input from them about what they would like to see and how we could sort of more closely adhere to their traditions and, rights, et cetera, related to mound maintenance. So.
Also,
Sue, go ahead.
another resource would be, and I don't know the specific resource, but the UW UW-Madison has some mounds on its property also. I think possibly up near the observatory. on Bascom Hill. But I know in that area and on the properties, there are some mounds, and maybe they have somewhere in their vast, I'm sure they do, their grounds committees probably, have to maintain that or do whatever. So maybe there are some rules that they follow too. And I would think they might have researched that to do that appropriately. So.
Great. And if you know of,
Actually,
some-
one of my son's friends used to work on the grounds committee there, so he might, or on the grounds group, so he might know teams, so he might know that. And if he doesn't, he might know who we could talk to. I'll try to ask my son.
that would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay, sure.
Any other DEI related items that others can think of while we're sort of probing this? All right. So the next item 8 is just important updates from committee members or items to consider for future agendas. Does anyone have any items that they would like to discuss? I think maybe, Elisa, if we can put a note about National Night Out and Fall Festival, we probably will not meet before National Night Out. I think it might be the 10th. It might be the 10th of August. So there may be time to sort of go over, or at least, get a list of volunteers for who might be able to do that. I'll probably be working the senior center concerts that night, but I'll be there. So I could potentially, work for part of the time. But I think we could, since the Fall Festival is a little bit later on, I would hope that we could really put our heads together and get some availability and interest there for tabling as well.
Great. I'll get them on the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other items for future discussion from those here tonight?
I just wanted to mention another tabling idea, being the farmer's market, because I've been handing out seed cards at the farmer's market a few times this year, but I do think having a more obvious setup, I haven't actually had a booth when I was just doing sustainability card handout. Otherwise, when I do office hours from the county board angle, I always have the seed cards there too, but that's not the main focus. But I think if there was a table where we had like the dashboard, kind of like the booth we had set up at the community festival, the people who, come out and shop at the farmer's market at 8 a.m. are, I think, the kind of audience that may be interested and receptive to learning about other opportunities for, being more environmentally friendly. So, certainly we can't do it every single Sunday, but if that's something maybe we could figure out doing for like August or this fall or something like that for once a month or whatever would work. I think that would be a good opportunity to continue to raise awareness. And then as we have other initiatives that are coming up or things that we're trying to get public buy-in, we have kind of a standing location where people know they can learn more about, an initiative that the committee is supporting or something.
I think that's a great idea. The only thing I would say is that the organizers of the farmers market are very particular about who is allowed to table at the market. And I think unless we could sort of, make it specific to sustainability practices related to healthy food intake and nutrition, that they would not be willing to let us table.
Okay.
But I had asked about a couple of different city initiatives and tabling there. And Claudia was essentially like, we just do things related to nutrition and healthy foods. And I know that she talked about you and Mary tabling, but I think that's because you are sort of like the premier representatives from our community.
Right. Well, and I did coordinate with her when I was there just to hand out seed cards though, before Mary and I started doing office hours.
Well, and that's kind of related to gardening and, when
they have seeds in the cards,
right?
It's,
so
it's
I
not
think
necessarily edible, but
right. I think it's a great idea, but I think we would need to cater specifically to that, to that
Sure.
message somehow or some way.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's think on it, but I think
Okay.
I'm sure there are things that we are doing or could do that would fit into that box somehow. So,
Okay.
Another thing that might be interesting is to use work with a nutritionist and find some multi-ethnic recipes that would utilize some of the types of produce that are coming out at the particular time in the market, and to get different varieties of food but still that are healthy and that kind of thing. I don't know if that something like that would work, or you're really handing out not menus, but recipes or something along with what you're doing.
yeah, I think that sounds like it would align pretty well with what they're trying to market, no pun intended.
Right.
So,
yeah.
All right. Any other topics for future discussion? Otherwise, I think we can entertain a motion to adjourn, and thank you all for taking the time to be here tonight.
I'm good.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Great. All in favor?
Bye.
Hi.
Okay, so next meeting is the 12th. Oh, it's the 12th, so that's after National Night Out. But let's talk about it behind the scenes and see if we can get some interest and maybe create a sign up for that in advance so people can be talking about National Night Out, and then we can also discuss the Fall Festival at the August 12th meeting. Okay.
Sounds reasonable.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Elisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.